This episode is going to give you tips for how to avoid backtracking or weight regain after a vacation. If you're new to this channel, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Dr. Morgan Nolte, geriatric physical therapist and weight loss coach, dedicated to helping you lose weight and get healthy now so you can avoid disease in the future. I know we have some international viewers, but in America, we just celebrated the 4th of July or Independence Day. And I thought this would be a good time to share some tips on how I avoid food guilt, spiraling, or gaining weight over a holiday. In my family, food is a big deal. We talk about food a lot, we eat a lot of good food, and most of our family gatherings revolves around food. And the holidays used to be a time where I would completely let myself go and enjoy all the sugar I wanted without regard to what it was doing to my health. Now that I know better, I try to do better. I know that sugar spikes blood glucose and insulin and inflammation, but that doesn't always mean it's easy. Being healthy isn't complicated, but it's not really easy either. I have, however, dialed in some strategies that I think you may find helpful to create healthy boundaries around the holidays so you don't feel like you're on a food pendulum, either all in or all out with your diet. I don't want it to take you like a month to lose the weight that you gained in one weekend on a vacation. It's possible to enjoy all the food on vacation or over a holiday and still prevent or limit weight regain. You can get right back on track with a couple tweaks I'll share with you today. And if you're watching on YouTube and have other ideas, I'd love for you to type them in the comments below. Nothing I'm going to tell you today requires you to give up any of your favorite foods, and I'm not going to tell you to skip all of the alcohol either. The trick to some of these strategies that I'm sharing with you is to really check your mindset around them and be sure that they feel good to you, that they feel mentally and physically healthy for you. Often around the holidays, again, you might feel like you're just on this pendulum. One day you're way on this side of unhealthy eating, then you swing the other direction to punish yourself or restrict yourself for overindulging or not following your plan. Now, those are not my own words. They actually come straight from my members, and I have to really take a pause and encourage them to listen to the language that they're using. The most important words that you say are the ones you tell yourself, and I want you to think about what you're thinking about. It can be helpful to write out your emotions and thoughts on paper because it helps you see your thoughts and really circle or highlight the limiting ones. Using words like restrictive, punishment, or compensate are all pretty harsh words, especially when it comes to food and your mindset around food. Unfortunately, this kind of mindset is pretty common in diet culture, and it really must be addressed to develop a healthy relationship with food, with fasting, and with exercise. Recognize that restriction isn't good or bad, it's just part of life. You either have to restrict yourself now so you can create a healthy lifestyle, or you're going to be restricted in the future when your body isn't able to do what you want it to. Often this mindset piece is missing from other weight loss programs, and trying a different program with the same mindset won't get you better results. So we all have room to improve here, myself included, whether you're just thinking about getting started, actively losing, or working to maintain what you've lost. The tips that I'm going to share in this episode will help you handle the holidays with grace. And I want you to be able to enjoy the food and company, not obsess over food and feel like you're missing out, right? No one likes food FOMO. So let's figure out a way to strike that healthy balance between feasting and fasting. If you're watching on YouTube, remember we have a contest going on. And if you haven't yet subscribed, you can do that and take a screenshot showing me that you did so. Then email that picture to mnolte@weightlossforhealth.com, and I will enter you in a contest, a July contest, to receive a special gift from me in the mail. So let's get into the 5 tips to avoid backtracking and weight regain over a holiday or vacation. My first tip is to alter your fasting schedule. Depending on what your baseline fasting schedule is, this will look different for everyone. But I typically fast for about at least 14 hours a day and try to have 3 meals and no snacks between those meals. If I know that I'm going to be feasting for a holiday, I will increase my fasting window to 1 meal a day, or maybe 1 meal and a high protein snack about an hour before that meal. And I may do this the day after the holiday too. So some holiday celebrations, at least in my family, extend for multiple days, so I might continue with this modified 1 or 2 meal a day schedule for a few days after the holiday until I feel like my body's just back to normal. But if you're prone to that punishing mentality, you may want to have a cutoff for how long you fast so that you don't use it as a means of excessive restriction and go for as long as possible to punish yourself. Remember, we're fasting to honor our bodies, not punish them. Your fasting schedule is your own. So if your baseline is fasting for 12 hours a day and eating 3 meals, you could try doing 2 meals a day within maybe a 14 or 16 hour fast. I wouldn't do anything too extreme here. Definitely avoid extreme mindsets that aren't helpful for most women to lose weight and keep it off. So for me, I'm fine with feasting, but recognize that if there's a feast, there also needs to be a fast to allow my insulin to come back down to baseline and just improve my digestive health and not feel so bogged down after that big heavy meal. I don't view this modified fasting schedule as a restriction as much as a trade-off. I don't view this as punishing myself for eating something unhealthy, rather honoring my body and allowing it to prepare for and reset after a bigger meal. The second tip is to drink more water than you normally do, especially if you're using this fasting technique. We tend to drink about 75% of the liquid in a day when we're eating. So if you're fasting, you'll want to be proactive about hydrating. And if you're not, you could have increased hunger, which obviously makes fasting harder than it needs to be. So during your fasting window, it is best to stick with plain water, coffee, or tea and avoid artificial sweeteners. But for full transparency, I still put half and half in my coffee. Tip number 3 is to eat your protein first. If you're eating a big meal, you'll want to still prioritize protein, especially if you're eating 1 meal a day and that's the only protein that you're getting for that day. Eating protein first triggers your satiety hormones and helps slow down the digestion of any carbohydrates you eat later in the meal. And a great interview I did with Molly Downey from NutriSense talked about different things that you can do to reduce the glycemic impact of your meal or how high your blood sugars rise after a meal. And you can use the tips that we discussed in that interview as well. Along the lines of eating protein first, I recommend that you also include some healthy fat and fiber in your meal before getting to dessert. Filling your plate with nutrient-dense foods and plenty of water will increase the volume in your stomach and make you less hungry and eat less of the unhealthy foods. So I do try to fill my plate with more protein, salad, and veggies, and just smaller portions of the carbs. So tip number 4 is to create boundaries around sweets and alcohol. This is one of the best things that's helped me over the years. I allow myself a certain portion or number of a treat or drink, and then after that I stop. I have a firm stop boundary, and I don't keep snacking or nibbling. If I'm at home, I will often go brush my teeth or chew a piece of gum to get a minty flavor in my mouth so that I don't still taste the sugar and want more. Another tip to create a boundary is to use my STOP method. S stands for space, T is for time, O is for observe, and P is for plan. If you forget to make a plan ahead of time, this STOP method gives you some space between you and the food. So for example, you go to the bathroom so you can have a little time to observe how you're feeling and make a plan about your boundaries. Tip number 5 is to opt for adult beverages that aren't loaded with added sugar. This one's a biggie because there's a lot of empty sugary calories hiding in alcoholic drinks. So for example, 1 can of ginger beer in a Moscow Mule has about as much sugar as a can of Pepsi. So if I do have a sugary drink, I try not to drink the whole thing, or maybe I'll share it with someone else. But I prefer to just have something that doesn't have very much added sugar, like a vodka tonic or a hard seltzer water. Hopefully, watching this video helps you reflect on your last holiday or vacation and see what can really be optimized for the next one. Now remember, don't be hard on yourself because those negative emotions are not helpful. Just try to get 1% better every day, and over time, those efforts will compound. I want to know, what one tip are you going to try for your next holiday or vacation? Are you going to try to increase your fasting window, drink more water? Maybe you need to prioritize protein or create stronger boundaries around sweets and alcohol. Maybe you need to opt for the lower sugar alcoholic beverages. Those were kind of the big tips that I gave. Let me know if you're watching on YouTube which one was your favorite in the comments below. And again, if you have any other ones. You can also connect on Instagram at Dr. Morgan Nolte and let me know your biggest takeaway. Just like you make a plan for what you're going to do on vacation, I want you to start to be proactive and putting some thought into how you're going to feast and fast and hydrate. Remember that great quote that I love by Brian Tracy: "Every minute you spend planning saves you 10 minutes on execution." This gives you a 1000% return on your energy. Taking the time to make your plan, even if it's a loose plan, will save you time after the holiday trying to lose that weight. So I do hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and I will talk with you at the same time, same place next week. Bye for now.